Hello, this is Chef John from foodwishes.com with Chorizo steamed clams. That's right, when we think of steaming, comforting bowls of food during the cold winter months, we usually associate that with long, slow simmering that takes hours. But as you're about to see with this Spanish-inspired steamed clam dish, that's not always the case. These clams are not only easy and delicious, they're very fast to make. Plus, there's chorizo involved, which is always a good thing. So let's go ahead and get started with the star of the show, the clams. So what I have here is 3 pounds of little neck clams, which have been thoroughly rinsed to remove any sand. And by the way, just because I'm using little neck doesn't mean you have to. I bet you could also do this with cherry stone or razor clams or manila clams. You are the Rand Paul of this clam call, so feel free to be a libertarian, and as long as you're not hurting anybody else, use any variety you want, which also includes mussels. And then, besides the clams, of course, we're going to need some chorizo sausage, which come already cooked in these links. And the rule of thumb here is we want to use 1 ounce of chorizo for each pound of clams. That is considered the perfect chorizo ratio, or as we refer to it in the business, the chor ratio. And since this link is 6 ounces, we'll just cut it in half, which will give us our 3 ounces. Sorry, I should have warned you, we were going to do math. And then split that down the middle, and then each of those pieces in half. And then we'll simply turn it and slice it up into, 1/8 inch, 1/4 inch slices. You know the drill. Pick a size and stick with it. And by the way, if you don't think you can find chorizo, but you have access to another kind of flavorful spicy sausage, can you use it? Well, yes. Yes, you can. So we'll go ahead and we'll slice up our chorizo as shown. And then besides the clams and our Spanish sausage, the only other things we're going to need are some finely diced onions, some freshly chopped parsley, and some finely minced garlic. And that is pretty much it. Oh, except we're also going to need some white wine. Something nice, something drinkable, but don't waste your money getting a really nice one. All I'm using is a nice $8 bottle of Sauvignon Blanc, which has a screw top. Remember, screw top doesn't mean bad. Screw top means cheap. And then once we have all our mise en place together, which I'm not sure what the Spanish word for that is, we can head over to the stove to get this fiesta started. So what we'll do is we'll place a soup pot on medium heat, into which we've added a splash of olive oil, and we will toss in our diced onions, and cook those stirring for about 3 or 4 minutes or until they just start to turn translucent. And usually we throw a pinch of salt in here, but be careful. All right, the sausage is highly seasoned, plus clams are kind of naturally salty. So I usually wait to the end to see if I need to add any salt. But anyway, like I said, we're going to cook those stirring until they just start to turn translucent, at which point we will toss in our sliced chorizo, and we will cook that stirring for about 3 minutes. And since chorizo is already cooked, we're not doing it for that reason. We're basically doing it to render some of that beautifully flavorful fat out. So we'll cook that sausage for a few minutes until it just starts to take on a little bit of color. And as I mentioned, some of the fat starts to render out. And once that's happened, we'll go ahead and toss in our garlic and only cook that for 1 minute. As usual, we don't want to brown the garlic. So we'll cook that garlic stirring for about 60 seconds, at which point we will dump in our white wine and then do 2 very important things. We will raise our heat to high because we got to bring this up to a boil. And then just as importantly, we got to make sure we have the cover handy. Because what's going to happen as soon as this comes up to a boil, we're going to carefully add our clams in, preferably without splashing ourselves. And then as soon as we nestle those in as evenly as we can, we will quickly cover this and let it cook on high heat for about 7 minutes or until the clams open up. And while some people like to remove the lid and give these a stir a couple times, I don't. You lose all the steam. So what I prefer is just grab a couple towels and give it the old shake-a-shake-a. And during the 7 minutes, I'll do that maybe 2 or 3 times. And if everything goes according to plan, about 7 minutes later, those clams will have opened up, and you should be looking at something very similar to this. And yes, it looks great, and you want to eat, but it's not quite done yet. What we're going to do is we'll turn off our heat and dump in a chunk of cold butter, as well as our freshly chopped Italian parsley. And as soon as that butter and parsley is mixed in, which is only going to take a few seconds, we are ready to dish up. And I didn't show it, but right here's where you would taste to see if your broth has enough salt. And then once all that's mixed together and you're happy with how it tastes, you're ready to serve this up. So we'll transfer some clams into hopefully a hot bowl. And of course, we're going to ladle over lots of that amazingly flavorful broth, as well as maybe a little more parsley. And then to finish this off, of course, we're going to need something to help us soak up all that amazing liquid. And I'm not saying you have to serve this with grilled bread. I'm just saying you absolutely should. And by the way, I cleverly planned this so you still have a half bottle of wine left with which to enjoy this. Speaking of which, I'm going to do that right now. And there's just something about that super savory, subtly smoky, sort of spicy chorizo that goes really well with the clams. I mean, certain combinations of ingredients just go together, and nobody knows exactly why. Scientists don't know. I'm guessing because they're working on more important stuff. And of course, a buttery, garlicky, wine-based broth doesn't hurt either. And I know it's a cliche to say soaking up the juices with the bread is the best part. But you know what? Those are cliches for a reason. And that may be the best part. And then real quick before we sign off, if you've never served clams to guests before, make sure you put a few bowls on the table so people have a place to put their shells. So just a little tip from the front of the house, which is restaurant slang for the dining room. But anyway, that's it. Chorizo steamed clams. They're delicious, fast, easy, gorgeous, and you only need a few ingredients. I mean, come on, if you need more good reasons than that to make a dish, I'm sorry, but you're being a little unreasonable, okay? So I really do hope you give these a try soon. Head over to foodwishes.com for all the ingredient amounts and more info as usual. And as always, enjoy.